Rand stood at the edge of the spaceport dock, holding his small bag and looking at the massive ship before him. The Celestial Accord floated quietly, lights blinking along its smooth metal hull. It was a neutral ship used for Galactic Union meetings between humans and alien species. This was Rand's first time stepping aboard. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a captain. He wasn't even important. He was just a translator, a quiet human who spent most of his time reading alien languages and fixing small misunderstandings. During talks, so why was he here? Two guards in silver uniforms stepped forward and scanned his ID. One of them looked surprised. You're the human assigned to the Xinthri exchange program? The guard asked. Yes, Rain said, nervous. I was called last night. No one explained why. The guard raised an eyebrow, then let him pass. Inside the ship, the hallways were wide and clean. Light blue panels glowed along the walls, and smooth floors made no sound under his boots. Everything was peaceful, but Rain's heart beat fast. Something about this mission felt strange. A woman with pale blue skin stood at the end of the hall. She was tall and slender, with glowing lines across her arms and neck. Her long hair shimmered like starlight. She wore a smooth black robe with silver patterns that moved gently, as if alive. She looked straight at her. Rand stood frozen as the alien woman stepped closer. Her eyes were soft, glowing like moonlight. Her voice was calm, but it held confidence. You are Rand, correct? She asked again. He nodded. Yes, I was assigned to something called the Xinthri Exchange. She smiled. Good. I'm Tella, your partner for the Intergalactic Affairs program. Before Rain could speak, she added, your room has already been prepared. I'll be waiting in your bed. Human, it is tradition. His eyes widened. What? Tella tilted her head, confused by his reaction. It is part of the agreement. Xinthri bonding begins with rest and shared space. You were told, yes? No. Rain replied quickly, feeling his cheeks turn red. I thought this was about language training or diplomacy, not sleeping arrangements. Tella blinked, then smiled again, this time with amusement. A misunderstanding. That is normal. But don't worry, it is not about mating, if that's what you fear. It is about trust. Xinthri build connection through shared closeness, not just words. Rain still looked nervous. You are uncomfortable, she asked, a little. He admitted, humans don't usually share beds with strangers. Tella gave a small nod. Then we will adjust slowly. You may keep to your space. But understand this, for my people, this program is sacred. It is not a joke. We do not mock your ways, and we hope you respect ours. Rain took a deep breath. Okay, I'll try. I didn't mean to offend. You didn't, she said kindly. You are honest. That is rare. Later that day, Rain was taken to his quarters. The room was larger than expected. There was a wide bed in the middle round, soft and surrounded by glowing curtains. One side of the room had Xinthri decorations, glowing crystals, and slow-moving light patterns. The other side had a simple human desk and chair. Tella stood near the bed, placing a folded robe on the edge. You may change into this for rest hours, she said. Rain stayed near the door. So you really stay here? Yes, I was assigned to you just as you were assigned to me. It is a joint exchange. We are to learn from each other. He looked down. What do you want to learn from a quiet translator like me? Tella turned to face him. You were not chosen by mistake. My people studied hundreds of human profiles. Most were too proud, too loud, or too violent. But you were peaceful, patient, balanced. Rain blinked. No one had ever called him special before. You read about us? He asked. Yes, I studied your history, your conflicts, your hopes, and your music. She touched a glowing panel on the wall, and soft piano. Music began to play. Rain smiled. I love that song. Tella sat calmly on the edge of the bed. I know. It was in your file. The next few days passed slowly. Rain and Tella spent time together in quiet conversations. They ate meals in the shared dining hall, where other species stared at them, some with curiosity, some with confusion. No other pair was like them. Most humans were assigned to political or military talks. None were part of the Intergalactic Affairs program. Rain felt out of place, but Tella didn't seem to care. In fact, she protected him. One afternoon, two human officers stopped them in the hallway. Well, one of them said. So you're the one who got chosen for alien bedtime duty. The other laughed. Must be tough, huh? Sharing a bed with a glowing snake. Rain felt embarrassed. He opened his mouth to reply, but Tella stepped forward. Do not speak to him like that, she said sharply. Rain was chosen for his mind and spirit. If you lack understanding, stay silent. The two officers stared at her, shocked. They mumbled something and walked away. Rain looked at her. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, she replied. In Scifi ways, partners defend each other, even from their own kind. That evening, Rain sat at the desk, writing a report. Tella sat on the bed, reading a small glowing book. They didn't talk much, but there was a peaceful feeling in the room. May I ask you something? Tella said. Of course. Why are you always quiet, even when people insult you? Rain paused. Because talking back doesn't change anything. I learned that the hard way. Tella nodded slowly. But your silence has weight. It makes others uncomfortable because they can't predict you. Rain smiled a little. That's not a bad thing, is it? No, she said. It's rare, and I like rare things. For the first time, Rain didn't feel like a background person. Tella didn't see him as weak. She saw him as important. He closed his tablet and looked at her. You're not what I expected, he said. Neither are you, she replied softly. They both smiled. A week had passed since Rain and Tella began their strange partnership aboard the Celestial Accord. Every day, they spoke a little more, shared meals, and even listened to music together. The once awkward room now felt warm and peaceful. But peace doesn't last long in space. That morning, the ship received a distress signal from a nearby moon called Felernine. It was a cold, quiet place where humans once built a science outpost. The outpost was shut down years ago, but now someone or something was calling for help. Rain listened as the captain of the ship made the announcement. A small team will investigate the source. If there are survivors, we bring them back. If it's a trap, we'll respond with defense protocols. Tella turned to Rain, her eyes thoughtful. There are rumors, she said. Old technology was buried there. Machines made before the first galactic treaties. Rain frowned. Dangerous machines, possibly, forgotten, broken, or stolen. Later that day, Tella was chosen to lead the Scifi part of the investigation team, to Rain's surprise. She made a request to bring him along. The human officer in charge raised an eyebrow. He's not a soldier. He's more than a soldier, Tella said firmly. He is calm under pressure, and I trust him. Rain's heart beat faster. He didn't expect to go into the field. He wasn't trained for action, but he nodded anyway. I'll go, he said. The shuttle landed softly on the dusty moon surface. Gray rocks stretched as far as the eye could see. Wind howled through sharp canyons, and the sun above was pale and cold. In the distance stood the abandoned research base, half buried under sand and ice. Tella walked ahead with confidence, her robe now covered with protective armor. Rain wore a light suit and stayed close to her side. Inside the base, silence filled the halls. Broken lights flickered, and dust hung in the air. Power is still active, Tella whispered. That's strange. This place was closed 15 years ago. They moved carefully through dark rooms filled with broken machines and old data pads. A small team of humans and Scifi followed behind. Suddenly, Rain noticed something strange, markings on the wall, scratched with sharp tools. A week had passed since Rain and Tella began their strange partnership aboard the Celestial Accord. Every day, they spoke a little more, shared meals, and even listened to music together. The once awkward room now felt warm and peaceful. But peace doesn't last long in space. That morning, the ship received a distress signal from a nearby moon called Felernine. It was a cold, quiet place where humans once built a science outpost. The outpost was shut down years ago, but now someone or something was calling for help. Rain listened as the captain of the ship made the announcement. A small team will investigate the source. If there are survivors, we bring them back. If it's a trap, we'll respond with defense protocols. Tella turned to Rain, her eyes thoughtful. There are rumors, she said. Old technology was buried there. Machines made before the first galactic treaties. Rain frowned. Dangerous machines, possibly, forgotten, broken or stolen. Later that day, Tella was chosen to lead the Zinthri part of the investigation team, to Rain's surprise. She made a request to bring him along. The human officer in charge raised an eyebrow. He's not a soldier. He's more than a soldier. Tella said firmly. He is calm under pressure, and I trust him. Rain's heart beat faster. He didn't expect to go into the field. He wasn't trained for action, but he nodded anyway. I'll go. He said. The shuttle landed softly on the dusty moon. Surface. Gray rocks stretched as far as the eye could see. Wind howled through sharp canyons, and the sun above was pale and cold. In the distance stood the abandoned research base, half buried under sand and ice. Tella walked ahead with confidence, her robe now covered with protective armor. Rain wore a light suit and stayed close to her side. Inside the base, silence filled the halls. Broken lights flickered, and dust hung in the air. Power is still active, Tella whispered. That's strange. This place was closed 15 years ago. They moved carefully through dark rooms filled with broken machines and old data pads. A small team of humans and Zinthri followed behind suddenly. Rain noticed something strange, markings on the wall, scratched with sharp tools. Rain slowly touched the strange markings scratched into the metal wall of the old research base. The shapes were not human letters, and they didn't belong to the Zinthri either. Tella walked up beside him and studied the symbols. Her fingers glowed faintly as she scanned them with a small device. This language is not in any current database, she said softly. It's old and possibly forbidden. Forbidden? Rain asked. Tella looked around the dark hallway. Some symbols carry energy. Ancient technology was built with codes, not just wires. These signs may be commands. The group continued. Deeper into the base, the walls showed more markings, growing more wild and chaotic. The power still hummed through the floor, even after 15 years. Suddenly, one of the human officers, a strong man named Jaren, called out, Captain, we found a sealed room. Something's still active inside. Tella and Rain rushed to the door. A soft red light blinked above it. Tella placed her palm on the panel, and the door slid open with a long hiss. Inside was a control room, untouched by time. Screens blinked with green light, showing maps of the moon and files filled with strange symbols. In the middle of the room was a large glass capsule. Inside the capsule was a creature. Rain stepped back in shock. The being was small, no bigger than a child, with gray skin and glowing eyes. It floated in thick blue liquid, unmoving. What is that? He whispered. Tella's voice was low. I think it's a guardian, a machine-organic hybrid. They were created during the Lost Wars, before the Galactic Union existed. Why would humans hide this? Jaren asked. Maybe they didn't, Tella replied. Maybe someone else. Put it here, someone who wanted it forgotten. As she spoke, a quiet alarm began to ring. The capsule's lights turned from blue to red. It's waking up, Rain said. The soft alarm grew louder. Red lights flashed across the old control room. The capsule in the center began to hiss, and the blue liquid inside slowly drained away. The strange creature inside floated lower, its glowing eyes flickering open. Rain took a step back. He had never seen anything like it. The creature looked small and thin, but something about it felt powerful, ancient, dangerous. Tella stood in front of him, hand reaching toward her side where her defense stick was, hidden beneath her robe. Don't attack it yet, she whispered. It may not be hostile. Jaren, the human officer, disagreed. It's a machine. It's not waking up to make friends. Suddenly, the capsule opened with a sharp hiss. The creature slowly floated forward, not touching the ground, its eyes, still glowing, locked onto Tella, then to Rain. A low hum filled the air. Then, it spoke, not in words, not in sound, but directly in Rain's mind. You are not them. Rain's eyes widened. Did anyone hear that? No, Tella said, watching the creature. What did it say? Rain hesitated. It said we're not them. I think it means the ones who left it here. The creature floated. Closer, still calm. It stopped in front of Rain and tilted its head. A soft voice echoed again in his thoughts. You're different. Not destroyers. Not liars. Rain breathed slowly. It's reading my mind. I think it knows I mean no harm. Tella nodded slowly. Good. Then speak to it. We must understand. Rain stepped forward, even though his legs shook slightly. He looked up at the floating being. We found you by accident, he said out loud. We don't want to hurt you. The creature blinked. Then more thoughts came into Rain's head, images this time. Flashes of fire. Explosions. Tall machines falling from the sky. Then a cage. Cold and dark. Time passing years, maybe centuries. I was built to protect. They turned me into a weapon. Tella spoke calmly, even though she couldn't hear the creature's thoughts. Ask it who turned it into a weapon. Rain asked the question. This time, the answer came in both image and voice. Humans, but not your kind, the old kind. The ones who ruled before peace. Tella's face grew serious. Before the Galactic Union. Jaren looked angry. That's impossible. Humans didn't even have deep space ships back then. Maybe not Earth humans, Tella said. But other groups, colonists, rebels, they could have built something out here, far from control. Suddenly, the ground shook. Hard. Everyone looked around. What was that? Rain asked. A loud voice came from the hallway speaker. Attention away team. Multiple unknown signals are approaching the base. Prepare for contact. Tella turned to the others. We need to leave. Now. As they ran back through the hallways, Rain looked behind. The ancient creature followed silently, still floating. Is it coming with us? Jaren asked. It wants to leave, Rain said. It doesn't want to be caged again. They reached the outer door of the base, but before they could exit, a blast shook the walls. Dust rained from above. The lights flickered. Then came the shadows stall. Dark figures with red glowing eyes appeared in the distance. They're not Zinthri, Tella said. Not human either, Jaren muttered. The figures raised weapons sharp, crackling with energy. The first shot flew through the air, hitting the wall near Rain. He ducked. Go, ass checked. Laser blasts flew past their heads as Rain, Tella, and the others ran back through the broken halls of the old base. The ground shook with every hit, and the air smelled like burnt metal. Keep moving, Tella shouted at the ancient floating, being followed behind Rain, still calm, but its glowing eyes had turned bright orange. It didn't speak, but Rain could feel something in his mind again. Protect, purpose-free. Jaren opened the outer hatch, and cold moon air rushed. The team ran out into the rocky valley where their shuttle was waiting, engines already starting. Enemy ships coming in from the north. One of the human crew shouted from the shuttle door. Rain looked up and saw them, 3 black vessels cutting across the gray sky. They weren't human ships, and they didn't look like Zinthri craft either. Sleek, sharp, and quiet. These attackers, Tella said, they were guarding the creature. They were hiding it. Rain added, breathing hard. They didn't wanted to wake up. The floating being turned toward the enemy ships and paused. It raised one hand, and a wave of silent energy spread from its body like a soft ripple. The incoming ships began to shake in the sky. One fell from the air, crashing into the distant rocks. The others turned back. Rain stared. What was that? Tella looked shocked. It has control over machines. The being turned back too. Rain and Tella then floated quietly into the shuttle. Once everyone was safely inside, the shuttle rose into the sky. Below them, smoke covered the surface of Feller 9. The old base was now half destroyed. Rain sat near a small window, still, trying to understand what had happened. Tella sat beside him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said, You did well, Rain. You kept calm when most would panic. I was scared, he admitted. But I had to stay with you. Tella smiled softly. That is what matters. Behind them, the ancient being floated silently in the back of the shuttle. It had not spoken since the battle, but Rain still felt its quiet presence in his thoughts. Safe for now, the shuttle docked back with the Celestial Accord, medical. Teams rushed to meet them, but Rain waved them away. He wasn't hurt, just tired. Tella stayed close, her eyes alert. Rain entered his quarters aboard the Celestial Accord. The door slid shut behind him with a soft hiss. The lights inside were low, casting a calm, warm glow over the room. The round bed was neatly arranged, and the soft music Tella had once played still echoed gently in the background. He dropped his travel bag beside the wall and sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes. His body was tired, but his mind was full of thoughts. Moments later, Tella entered. Silent as always, she closed the door behind her and walked over, her long robe shifting like water as she moved. She sat beside him without saying a word. For a moment, they just sat in silence. Then Rain finally spoke. I never thought I'd face danger like that. I thought I was just a translator. Tella looked at him with her glowing blue eyes. You are more than your title, Rain. You showed courage and something even rarer, kindness. He smiled weakly. I didn't feel brave. Bravery isn't about feeling fearless, she said. It's about choosing to stand when you're scared. Rain looked at her and nodded. Thank you for staying with me, for trusting me. I will always stay, Tella said softly. That is the Zinthri way. When a bond begins, it is not broken easily. He glanced toward the center of the room, where the glowing crystals from Tella's culture softly pulsed. Do you think the creature will be okay? Tella answered. It has seen too much. It was built for war, but remembered peace. It connected with you. That means something. Rain thought about the strange floating being, the Guardian. As Tella had called it, it had spoken to him without words, using feelings, thoughts, images. It had protected them, not because it had to, but because it chose to. Maybe, just like him, it wanted something more than survival. Maybe it wanted connection. The next morning, Rain was called to a special meeting with human and Zinthri leaders aboard the ship. Tella walked with him through the long halls, both of them quiet, both thinking. Inside the chamber, a small group sat around a glowing table. On one side were humans, officers, scientists, diplomats. On the other side, tall Zinthri officials stood with calm expressions. In the center floated the Guardian. Its presence made the room feel strange, quiet, but full of energy. Rain could feel it watching everyone, even without eyes that moved. Ambassador Telm, a high Zinthri elder, turned to Rain. You were the first to speak with it. You felt its mind. What is your judgment? Rain looked around nervously. Everyone waited for his words. He took a deep breath. It doesn't want war, he said. It wants peace. But it's afraid. It remembers what was done to it. What about its power? A human officer asked. It brought down a warship with a wave of its hand. Can we trust something that's strong? Rain answered. We can't control it, and we shouldn't try. But we can offer it something different: choice, freedom, and respect. The Guardian slowly turned its head toward Rain. For a brief moment, he heard a quiet voice in his mind. You understand. Tella stepped forward. I stand with Rain. If we fear what we don't understand, then peace is never possible. The room fell silent again. Finally, the human commander nodded. We agree. The Guardian will not be held or tested. It may choose where to go. The Guardian floated gently to Rain and Tella, then slowly moved toward the exit. Free at last. That evening, Rain returned to his quarters once more. This time, he felt different. He wasn't just a background worker anymore. He had played a part in something important. He sat on the bed, and Tella joined him, just as she always did. But now, the silence between them wasn't awkward or heavy. It was peaceful. He looked at her and smiled. I remember the first thing you said to me. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, you said, I'll be waiting in your bed. Human. Tella smiled. It is still true. Rain laughed softly. Back then, I thought it was a joke. Now, I understand what it meant. To share space is to share spirit, she said. Gently, we are different, but we learned, together. He looked into her glowing eyes. I'm glad I came here, even if I was scared. I'm glad too, she whispered. You were chosen not because of strength, but because of your heart. They rested side by side. No words needed. In a galaxy full of war, power and fear. Two different souls had found understanding, peace, and something quietly beautiful. And far beyond the ship, a once-forgotten guardian floated free among them. Stars no longer a weapon, but a watcher, because one human chose to listen, and one alien chose to stay.